Over she comes. Ah.
Vampire bats are the only bats in the world that feed on blood.
This creature will make your skin crawl in at number 10. Now we're talking about the Onychopora, otherwise known as the velvet worm. These guys have been around for about 500 million years, but don't be fooled by their small size. There are 180 different variations of the velvet worm, and they can be found in moist, dark places all around the tropics like Australia, New Zealand. They have lots of tiny stubby feet, but each foot has a hooked claw. They are also known to be ambush predators, so they like to hunt other small insects at night. In order to catch their prey, they will squirt a sticky slime that quickly hardens. After the prey is immobilized, the velvet worm will bite into it, inject them with digestive saliva that will help them liquefy their insides so they'll become easier to eat.
Now all that remains is for the velvet worm to rip off pieces of the unlucky bug, soften them up with digestive saliva, and then down the hatch. Or whatever passes for the hatch in a velvet worm.
Okay, what the heck is this thing? He might look small, but he is definitely one of the scariest worms I've ever heard of. Imagine being swarmed by a group of these things while you're camping in the Australian outback. Eye comes climbing onto this list at number 9.
And the nocturnal animals emerge from their hiding places to hunt. This is the eye, a lemur, and probably the world's strangest mammal.
I don't know if this creature is one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen, or it's actually kind of cute. I don't know. It looks like it crawled straight out of hell and had one of the roughest days of its life. Eyes are actually thought to be evil spirits. People who are native to Madagascar say that the eye represents an omen of bad luck. So for this reason, they will be killed on sight. A lot of people in this area will resort to illegal hunting, or they will destroy their habitats. All of these things have put these creatures at risk of becoming extinct. But let's get back to another reason why these creatures are so damn creepy. They have a really unusual feeding ritual known as percussive foraging. So basically what that is, well, they will tap on trees to locate bugs, and then they will chew a hole into the wood using their long incisors, and these things are slanted forward. Once a small hole has been eaten out of the tree, the eye will insert his creepy super long middle finger to pull the bugs out. If I saw this thing lurking in the jungle with his long middle finger, I'd be running in the opposite direction, and you know what? That's a little bit rude, buddy. You flipping me the finger? I mean, why does it have to be his middle finger as long as one? Why can't it just be like... Hyena makes its way onto this list at number 8. There are many reasons why you wouldn't want to come face to face with the hyena. First off, hyenas love to come out at night. They can live in a wide range of different habitats, such as the savanna, forest, the desert, the mountain terrain, and they also live in the Lion King. They're actually cannibals, and they will attack and eat other hyenas, including their young. So yeah, they're pretty savage beasts. And probably one of the scariest sounds that you'll ever hear is the sound of their laughter. Apparently if you hear them laugh, you're in a whole lot of trouble, because it signals that the hyena is excited because they found their next meal. And in case you guys haven't figured it out yet, their next meal is you.
Roxy. Yeah, let's go back it just a little bit.
About 95% of their diet comes from their own kills, which is usually carried out by a pack of 80 hyenas. So if you spot one, you're probably gonna die, because that's one and there's 79 elsewhere. Pretty close by. Swimming into this list, and at number 7 we have the wolffish. And yeah, they're as terrifying as they sound. Thankfully they are in the water, so we can easily avoid them. Wolffish are very vicious predators with a large head, powerful jaws, and super large canine teeth. They can reach lengths of up to 5 feet long, and they won't hesitate to bite humans if they are provoked. I didn't even know that these things existed in the first place. Well, take a look at this clip right here. You'll probably never want to go swimming ever again.
Over she comes. Ah. But fantastic, here we go. That's a result, that's lovely. So here we are, this is the wolffish.
I think I'm gonna have nightmares about their razor sharp teeth. And after doing the research for this list, I'm giving myself a 7 p.m. curfew. Number 6, we have cougars. And no, I'm not talking about the older woman you see in bars hitting on younger men. Although that is a pretty scary thing to watch. I'm just kidding, but I'm talking about these guys right here. If you see a cougar in the wild, chances are he's already seen you and he's been watching you. He's been watching you for a pretty long time. Cougars are probably one of the most terrifying animals that you can encounter in the North American woods. They like to stalk their prey and they can weigh up to 200 pounds. You should never turn your back on a cougar because it'll be the last thing that you do. They can jump up to 20 feet in the air and they can reach speeds of up to 35 to 45 miles per hour. Cougars like to hunt everything from moose to insects. So basically nothing is safe. Let's keep this list moving. In at number 5, vampire bats. Did you guys know that vampire bats live in colonies that contain anywhere from 100 to 1,000 members? Colonies that have only 100 bats can drink the entire blood supply of 25 cows per year. I mean, that's a pretty unsettling fact. If you put that into perspective, a cow has about 39 liters of blood and humans only have about 5 liters. So if their favorite thing on the menu changes from cow to humans, we're in a lot of trouble here. A larger colony of vampire bats could kill 1,900 humans a year, and this could be a serious threat to our own survival. And let's not forget about their razor sharp fangs that can easily pierce through your skin. Vampire bats also have the ability to infect humans with rabies. It might be rare, but it does happen. So let's just hope for our sake that vampire bats don't get desperate enough to start snacking on us, because yeah, that could be a pretty serious problem. And not to mention, I would probably never want to leave the house ever again. Scorpion stings us in at number 4. Scorpions are nocturnal creatures. They like to spend their days hiding under rocks and in small crevices, and then they come out at nighttime and hunt in the darkness. They're carnivorous creatures and they paralyze their prey using their venomous stinger. If that doesn't sound terrifying, then I don't know what is.
Scorpions tend to stay away from us, but they also love the dark spaces that houses and old buildings provide. Your typical scorpion is passive and defensive, but some scorpions are known to be aggressive. When hunting, they use their pinchers to grab hold of their prey before injecting it with venom from their stinger. While scorpions use venom to kill or sedate their meals, only around 40 types actually have venom that's dangerous for humans.
Okay, did you guys know that a scorpion can live a full year without food? I mean, I could probably do an hour. And they can stay underwater for about 48 hours and survive. So yeah, scorpions are beasts and they're pretty much indestructible, like a cockroach. Larger scorpions can eat large prey such as small rodents and lizards, but basically they will eat whatever they think is appetizing. Oh, and a hungry female scorpion will eat her own babies if her food sources are scarce. Surprisingly enough, scorpions aren't that dangerous to humans, and if an adult is stung, you know, you're gonna live. You're gonna be alright. But I don't know anyone who would willingly want to be stung by a scorpion, and I definitely don't want to stumble across one when I'm walking out at nighttime. Well, we've already established that my curfew that I've set on myself is 7 p.m. so I'm never gonna see nighttime. Crawling up this list or down this list, this depends on how you see it, we have the tarantula. A lot of people's fears. A lot of us give tarantulas a bad reputation because of how they are portrayed in movies and because their scary appearances. But in reality, they're actually pretty peaceful creatures when it comes to interacting with humans, but I still have zero interest in ever meeting one of these things. Tarantulas have been known to be able to eat birds, but majority of them like to snack on whatever insects that they can find. Some larger tarantulas will feed on snakes, frogs, and mice. They're also known as ambush predators, so they will hide and wait for their food, attack them when they get close, and then attempt to kill them as quickly as possible. And they do this by using their venom. If that's not scary enough, they turn their prey into soup before eating them. So they will inject strong digestive chemicals into their prey, which causes their insides to liquefy, and then the tarantula will just suck it up. If you're still not convinced that these tarantulas are pretty terrifying, take a look at this clip. Is this real life right now? Alright, let's move on. Let's move on to the Tasmanian devil. This devil himself comes in at number 2 on our list. The Tasmanian devil live in the south of Australia. I have seen one, not in the wild because that would be terrifying. And they're known as carnivores, semi-nocturnal and highly aggressive animals. They have one of the strongest bites in the animal world. Their bites are so strong that they can actually bite through a metal trap, so human bones could be a breeze to bite through. They also like to eat their own prey in a group setting, tearing the meat and limbs off of the carcass. On average, they eat about 15% of their body weight each day, but if they have the opportunity to eat more, they can eat about 40% of their body weight in just 30 minutes. How could something so small and this cute creature be so deadly and vicious?
This fiendish fighter may look cute, but its name says it all. The Tasmanian Devil.
Honey badger brings us to number 1. Okay, don't be fooled by this name. I know honey, when you put honey in a name, it's usually sweet, but in this case, I don't think so. Honey badgers have the ability to be extremely aggressive. They're known to bite the heads off of snakes and to munch on scorpions. They look friendly and cuddly, but trust me, you don't want to go anywhere near these things. For the honey badger, literally everything is on the menu. They've eaten things such as beetles, lizards, birds, crocodiles, and even large pythons. Oh, and they also snack on the highly venomous black mamba snake. Their teeth are also incredibly strong. They can bite down with enough force to break the shell of a tortoise. The honey badger is extremely intelligent as well. They have the ability to break through locks on fridges, and they will stack rocks into piles so that they can climb over walls. So basically none of us are safe. They are also some of the most fearless creatures, and that's exactly why I never want to meet a honey badger. Well, here's a clip I found for you guys of a honey badger battling a male lion. If I come face to face with a lion, I would just fall over and accept my fate. I mean, at that point, what can I really do? But this honey badger, well, he's pretty savage. I'm not savage.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the military ghost. This one comes from a guy who said he did his military training at Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri. The barracks were at least 50 years old by this point. Every night, new recruits were told to stay awake for an hour and mop the floor until the next soldier was woken up to take over. One night, the guy, Jack, was sitting underneath the speakers trying to stay awake when a voice came out of them. Now usually it was one of his commanding officers barking orders to wake up, but this time it was different. A soft woman's voice could be heard, barely even a whisper. She said, "Private, get everyone outside right now. Right now, Private, everyone outside." He was surprised, not because it was a woman, as he did have female drill sergeants, but because the voice was so soft. Jack headed down the hallway where he found another guard also standing duty. He asked him if he had heard the voice. The guard said no. Jack thought it must have just been his imagination and didn't want to risk waking everyone up just because his mind was playing sleepy tricks on him. The rest of the night was normal, and Jack put it to the back of his mind until weeks later. One day they had a 3-day field training exercise. On the last day they all sat around a fire and everyone swapped stories. The drill sergeant shared some stories of the base. Jack's sergeant told a story of the first female drill sergeant on that base. She was harassed so much that it was unrelenting, and then one day she snapped. She hung herself from some exposed water pipes using her belt. A few years later they plastered over the exposed pipes. The reason? So they could put the speakers up there on the wall. Next up at number 9 now, we have the wedding party. This one comes from Reddit user PyKing9000. He said when he was in high school he worked for a catering company, so his hours would often be very late. On one such night he was resetting a room for a wedding that was happening the next day. A co-worker told him to go upstairs and get some chairs from the room that had just hosted a wedding that night. When he got to the room he noticed there were still people in there chatting away and having a good time. He was confused and told them the wedding had already ended. He took the chairs down and told his co-worker there were still guests up there. He asked if they needed anything else from that room or should they just wait for them to leave. It was the co-worker's turn to look confused now. He said he'd just been up to that room as well and didn't remember seeing anyone up there at all. They went up to the room and sure enough the room was completely empty and looked like it had been for hours. Some Redditors think this may have been a ghostly echo of a wedding that has already happened years ago, or perhaps they were spirits looking to recreate the good times they'd had in life. Moving on to number 8 now, we have a story from UltiMabdon316. He said that one night he was working at a fancy hotel next to an airport. One night he got a call from a lady in room 204. She said there was arguing, loud banging and crying from the room next to her. He checked the computer, but the the system showed there was nobody in that room due to maintenance issues. Confused, he called his supervisor to see what to do. She told him to call the on-site security and follow them up with a key. When they stepped out of the elevator, they heard the sound of crying. It was loud. His heart started racing as he neared the door. The security guard put the key in, opens up the door and flicks on the light. As they enter the room, the shower is on, steam coming out from underneath the door. There was only one lamp on in the room. The air was very cold, and then he saw her. A woman, stripped down to her underwear, was lying on the bed sobbing. As they approached, she rolled over. She was pale, covered in blood, and just staring at them. At that moment, they realized the shower had stopped and the door was open. There in the doorway was a huge, ominous-looking man. Security tased and arrested him. It turns out that he was a criminal who was hiding in hotel rooms to kidnap and sexually assault women who stayed there, sometimes murdering them afterwards. At number 7 now we have swinging. Smashly Pimpson is the Reddit user who shared this story. He said that he worked in a department store where every year before Christmas he would have to stay overnight to sort out all the new merchandise. One year he was stuffing a duvet into a bag when all of a sudden a picture frame that was just hanging up a few aisles away crashed to the ground and smashed everywhere. He was too tired to care and went to the back to get a dustpan and brush. There were plastic bags of clothes hung up on a conveyor belt on a ceiling. As he looked up, he saw one single bag was swinging hard. It was banging around as if someone had just shoved it moments ago. No other bags were moving. He freaked out and quickly grabbed a dustpan and brush and left. However, when he got to the smashed picture frame, it was gone. All of it. None of the other employees there knew what he was talking about, and the memory of that night has never quite left him. At number 6 now we have The Girl. This one comes from Banksy420, who said they work in a restaurant that has its own bakery attached. All the bakery staff would always talk about the ghost of a little girl who haunted the whole place, but he didn't know that when he started the job. One day things were moving quite slow, and so he did some prep work by himself in the kitchen. He was at the prep table, kind of zoning out and just listening to music. Then he felt someone right next to him, as if they were shoulder to shoulder, a sudden presence that wasn't there before. Then he heard a little girl's voice very sweetly say, "Hi Josh, how are you?" He said he even felt her breath as the words were spoken. He said it felt so vivid, but when he turned around, there was nobody there. He told his co-workers this, and they weren't too surprised. They were all quite familiar with the ghost of the little girl. They just learned to not answer her back. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the dolls. One girl said she used to work the night shift at a Greasy Spoon diner. There were usually a lot of drunk people there. Another waitress finished at 4 AM, so she was usually alone until 7 AM. One night her co-worker left and then returned just a few seconds later. She had a weird half smile on her face and said, someone put something on your car. Judging by her look, she knew it wasn't good. She went out to see. Every inch of her car was covered in naked dolls. There were hundreds of them. Cabbage Patch, Barbies, baby dolls, you name it, it was there. They all had different shapes and sizes. The only thing they all had in common was that they were completely naked. It took 55 trash cans to get rid of them. She was scared. In the nights that followed, she began to get very creepy calls at around 4:15 AM. It was a voice that would ask her if she liked the gift. The calls got angrier and more abusive as the nights went on, and then one night at 4:15 AM, the phone rang and all she heard was popping noises, no voices, and then the phone hung up. It's been 9 years since then and she hasn't been called since. She's curious about what happened, but also very glad it's all over. Next up at number 4 now we have The Creature. This story was told by a woman who worked at a group home for disturbed youth. She said that 15 years ago she was sitting in the hallway and she just felt like she was being watched all night. It wasn't the kids, they were all in bed. It was an almost physical sensation, an unseen pressure pushing down on her. She cleaned out the linen closet in the hallway and left the door open when she was done. The hallway was so narrow that the door blocked it completely. Now to her surprise, that feeling of being watched disappeared. Like a switch being flipped. Happy, she continued on like this for 2 more nights, and then on that 3rd night she was doing bed checks when something in the hallway caught her eye. She slowly turned her head to look down the hallway and froze. The linen closet door was now halfway open and there was a tall, elongated creature hunched over the back of the door, gripping it, its head peering out over it. It didn't have a face or clothes, but it was flesh coloured with elongated arms and legs. It stood at least 7 foot tall, Despite not having a face, she knew that it was staring at her. She ran to the staff office and sat huddled in the corner for 6 hours until the relief staff came. She told nobody but her family, and now all of us. At number 3 now we have The Watcher. This one comes from Reddit user Baby Butter Blues. She said that after leaving college she got a job as a nanny for 2 elementary age girls. For the parents' anniversary they went on a week-long cruise, and so she babysat the kids. For the first few nights the 8-year-old would go into her room multiple times a night and wake her up. It was obvious she hadn't pre-planned what she was going to give as her reason for waking her up, so she would just stumble through an excuse on the spot, like, I just wanted to make sure we are still going to the park tomorrow. The babysitter figured the girl was just missing her parents and feeling a bit unsettled, so she let it slide at first. However, by the 4th or 5th time she'd had enough. She told the girl not to wake her unless it was for an emergency. With that she went to sleep for a few more hours. It wasn't to last though. Around 5 AM she woke up, but there wasn't any obvious reason for it. She just felt strange. She turned over and almost jumped out of her skin. The girl had brought over a chair right next to the bed and was staring at the babysitter. Her long black hair was draped over her expressionless face. The babysitter asked what she was doing. The girl simply said, I just thought it would be fun to watch you sleep. I didn't wake you. That is where the story ends, but I presume at that point the babysitter was just sprinting down the road. That's what I do. Next up at number 2 now we have the tapping. This one comes from Reddit user Elanco. He said that his job in Canada involves him looking after a factory. On one winter night it reached minus 30 degrees Celsius. It was a rough shift. One of his co-workers told him she'd cover him while he went for a quick nap in his car. He parked across the street from the plant so that his supervisor couldn't see him on the camera. With that he fell asleep quickly. However, just 15 minutes later he was woken up to the sound of tapping. It was around 3 AM and by the time he pulled himself together and looked around he saw, well, nothing. The parking lot was big and empty, but there was nobody there at all. Whoever tapped on his window must have been able to move incredibly fast or not even be human. He was too shaken to continue his nap and so decided to head back to work and tell his co-worker about what happened. She'd been working there longer and knew the area better. She didn't seem fazed when he told her what happened. She simply said, oh yeah, that happens all the time with everyone working the night shift. We don't know who or what it is. Can you even imagine? I think the scariest part of that is the possibility of it not being an animal or human. What do you guys think? I also think it was probably hiding under the car. How creepy is that? And finally, number 1 now we have the dispatcher. Ariadne Hayes said that he used to work as a police emergency dispatcher for the police department in his city. He was working overnight once when a woman called in to say her depressed husband had gone missing. The police asked around and found out that he sometimes liked to go to an old cemetery and just be alone. With this lead, they sent 2 officers out there to look for him. When they got there, they saw the door to an old stone mausoleum was cracked open. They went in and stumbled through the dark underground rooms surrounded by the tombs of the dead. Then one of their flashlights caught a figure standing at the very back. It looked like they had their guy. They were relieved. They walked towards him, but it wasn't until they were right next to him they realized they had got it all wrong. They had found the right guy, but he wasn't standing, he was hanging. The ceiling was so low to the ground that his feet were barely an inch off the floor. The officers hightailed it out of there and told the dispatcher this very creepy story.
Starting off this countdown, we have the ghostly legs. So Reddit user BeepBopDeBoop shared this story. One night she was staying up late as usual watching a movie. That's when she saw a pair of legs come down the stairs and just stop halfway. All she could see was black suit pants and shiny black shoes. The person turned towards her and then slowly went back up the stairs. I should probably add that she was home alone. It was just her and her 3 dogs. So who the hell was this well-dressed man that came down her stairs? The next morning she checked the cameras and sure enough you can see her and her 3 dogs all of a sudden turn and just watch the man come down the stairs. The fact that he was caught on tape makes it more terrifying. Like, was it an actual man? Was it a ghost? We don't know, but I'd move out for sure if that happened to me.
Coming in at number 9 is the giggling. Giggling is a hard no from me. I'd rather hear someone scream in the middle of the night than hear some high-pitched giggling. So this one was shared by Reddit user EagleMan1776 who lives out in the woods. That's his choice, you know, gotta respect it even if I don't agree with it. Now he said that his bedroom is quite small, which means it tends to overheat, so he likes to leave his window open so he doesn't boil to death at night. Anyway, one night the user was texting one of his other night owl friends when he heard the loudest blood blood-curdling scream. And since this was in America, the guy was an armed citizen, so he just grabbed his gun and aimed it at the window, about to blind fire. Then after he calmed the hell down, he called the friend he was texting and he came over and they searched the woods together back to back. Like Mission Impossible style. They got about 100 yards behind the house when they heard a child giggling. Like at that point, it's over for everyone. They ran back inside and now they never bring it up.
In our 8th spot, we have the specters. Reddit user RBF70 claims that when they were younger, a bunch of freaky paranormal stuff would happen to them while they were up late at night. So the user claims that when their parents were sleeping, they would still be able to hear the TV on in the living room. But when they went downstairs, no one was watching TV. And it just magically turned off by itself. Other times they would hear a bunch of sounds coming from their basement, as if a bunch of people were throwing a party down there. But the freakiest thing that they ever witnessed was years later. So one night their nephew was taking photos in the living room, but when they viewed them back, in the background there was a girl with long dark blonde hair wearing a green nightgown. Ever since they captured her on film, they have seen her multiple times late at night, just chilling in the living room. So maybe invite her to, sit down, share some snacks, and watch a movie with her. Who knows? Ghosts can make good company. Jokes, no, she's probably gonna try and curse you.
Filling our number 7 slot is The Mask. This story only happened 3 months ago, so it's fresh in this person's mind and mine. So this one was shared by Reddit user KWW1108, who works as a 911 dispatcher in this rural area. Now they said it's really not that weird to have a night shift where they get 0 calls. Now the person works alone and the room they're in is super small with glass windows at the front, but on most nights the person would make a sofa out of 2 chairs in front of them, and that would make the windows now a blind spot. This backstory was necessary, I swear to God I'm not just wasting your time. Now one night there was no calls till 2:30 AM, and even that one was a routine one. Someone just wanted a number, they gave it to him, and that was that. But for some reason after the call the user just couldn't settle down. Almost instinctively the person checks the windows behind them and themselves. Outside the window there's this guy standing there with a medical face mask on, just staring. Standing as close to the door as possible, just staring and breathing on the window. The user ushered them to come in, but he just looked at him funny before leaving. Apparently one of the medics in the building stopped him and found out that the guy was high on numerous drugs and was convinced he had COVID despite having 0 symptoms and his temperature being normal.
Making our way down the list at number 6, we have the phone call. This next story is something straight out of a horror film, I swear. So Reddit user A Matter of Time and his wife were up late one Friday night / Saturday morning when something odd happened to them. Out of nowhere their landline phone started ringing. They felt sick to their stomach because who calls this late at night? Like, unless it's something bad that happened or it was an emergency. So he answered his phone and realized that the call came from his wife's cell phone. On the other end of the line they heard muffled breathing sounds. He hung up and asked his wife where her phone was. It was upstairs the entire time on her nightstand, face down. So who or what was upstairs in the room? Something was on her phone, and that something had to know her phone password to get into the phone, then navigate to the contacts, and then find their home number, and then call it. What a little mischievous ghost.
Coming in at number 5 is the tapping. So this one was shared by Redditor I Was Eating Those Beans, and lol, at that username firstly, I do love me some beans too. Anywho, they said that they were lying in bed one night and then it was around 2 AM at this point. The house is completely quiet, they could hear the crickets outside, it was just a normal quiet night at home. Then out of nowhere the user hears this sharp loud bang like someone's just stabbed their walking stick into the ground. The user froze obviously before trying to calm themselves down and being like, okay, houses make weird sounds all the time, it's no biggie, plus it's coming from downstairs, it's probably the fridge or something. But then they heard the sound again, and this time it sounded like it was coming from the kitchen. It's getting closer and the sweat on my back is getting worse, and I'm talking about me, not the user. Then a few more taps, all sounding like they were coming from different rooms before the last final tap. That came from right outside the user's door, and the house had really creaky stairs, but they didn't hear anyone coming up them, so who or what was making that sound?
In our 4th spot, we have the ventriloquist doll. This next story is going to make you want to burn all of your dolls. Seriously. So Reddit user Hecking Weeb was up at about 2 o'clock in the morning when he heard something from the corner of his room. It said, "Will you please take this bag off my head?" Well, in the corner of the room there was a ventriloquist dummy with a bag over its head. He was staying at his grandmother's house and was creeped out by the doll, so he covered its head. That's terrifying. Does your grandmother own Slappy the Dummy or what? I would have been like, love you Grams, but I'm out. Every man for themselves. She's got the bad hip, take her.
Filling our number 3 slot is the crying. So this one's from Redditor Koenig7, who said this incident happened when they were still living at their family home, meaning with their mom, stepdad, and 3 siblings. So this house was not scarily empty by any means. There was a lot of people there. Now one night the user was up late filling out job applications when they heard what sounded like someone crying. At first the user thought it was their youngest sister, but they looked over to her and she was fast asleep. So it wasn't her, the sobbing was still continuing, and now they were getting worried. They then checked if it was their older sister, and it wasn't, but she could also hear the crying. Both parental units were fast asleep, so the last person to check on was their brother. But he wasn't in his room, and now they were truly freaking out, because what if he had just wandered off somewhere to cry and they could hear it? They rushed downstairs and found him asleep on the sofa with the TV off. So at this point, it was 3:06 in the morning, and the mysterious sobbing went on till 5 AM, and they never got to the bottom of it.
In our second spot, we have the hotel room. So this next story comes from a woman who worked the night shift at a hotel. It was around 3 in the morning when she got a call from one of the hotel rooms. But this hotel room wasn't in service. No one was staying there. When she answered the phone, all there was silence. So she ignored it, but the phone rang again. This time she asked if everything was okay. Again, nothing. So she decided to wander up to the room and scope it out. That's when she found the door slightly ajar. She entered and all the lights were off except a single lamp on the bedside table. She walked over, turned it off, and that's when the phone rang. This time, it was a call from the front desk. She answered it and she heard her voice echo back to her. Being freaked out, she left fast. The next day, she was sharing her experience with her coworker. That's when they told her that that's the room a lady died in. She was having a heart attack and tried calling down to the front desk for help, but no one picked up. So her spirit is still present in the room that she died in.
And finally, at number 1 is the basement. Nothing safe and fun ever happens in basements, you guys. They're literally there to kill someone, hold them hostage, or dismember someone in, and that is all. So this one's from Redditor Real Blonde, who said he used to play video games in his basement when he was small, and he would play with the lights off, which I get, you know, it makes the only thing you can focus on the TV and the game, so I get it. One night he had the basement doorknob behind him rattle and shake on its own before opening. No one is there from his family, so how did the door just open like that? Then slowly but surely he saw this black arm reach through the door frame, and it had really thin, foggy looking fingers. It came out and started climbing along the wall, and that's when the user saw its eyes. They forgot about whatever game they were playing and probably ran the hell up the stairs and cried. Well, they didn't say that they cried, I just added that.